My son is currently 6, approaching 7. He has not been in school since 2017. He's one of those children that has just been forgotten.
There's a crisis in special education.
The class sizes are about 7 or 8 pupils per class size. We've had 130 referrals for primary placements this year, and we're full.
Not enough spaces, high numbers of exclusions and cutbacks.
I wish I could strangle the person neck who has decided to put us in this position.
But this isn't just a story of funding cuts. It's about increasing numbers of children who are being denied an education.
So Bolan has been at the school since primary and moved up this year. He's in year 7. The lights give him something to refocus on when he's distressed or anxious.
Special educational needs and disability provision is split between specialist and mainstream schools. Both are under considerable pressure. It's estimated that by 2021, there will be a funding gap of £1.6 billion. To gain a legal right to extra support, children have to be assessed for an Education, Health and Care Plan, or EHCP. This used to be called a statement. Last year, there were more than 285,000 children with EHCPs in England. But that isn't the whole picture. Not all children with complex needs have a care plan, and applying for one can be a lengthy process, taking months or even years. Finding the right school place is incredibly difficult. Special schools like Ufcombe offer support to children like Balin, who's on the autistic spectrum, but each year there are many more applicants than places.
In our primary provision, specifically year 1 and 2, the class sizes are about 7 or 8 pupils per class size. We've had 130 referrals for primary placements this year, and we're full.
So what happens to the children that don't make it into this school?
Those children will find another place somewhere else. The local authority has a duty to find that place.
But there are children who don't have places, aren't there?
No, that's true. And your heart goes out to every single one of those children and their families, because whilst we may think we could help this child, we don't and we can't.
So with a shortage of places, just how many children with special educational needs are ending up without a school? Councils don't routinely publish figures, but by pulling together individual freedom of information requests from the last 6 months, Newsnight has begun to build a picture of hundreds, if not thousands of children with official care plans that just don't have a school place. 164 in Stoke-on-Trent, 93 in Surrey, 348 in Kent. With figures for just a quarter of English councils, we counted 1,580 children with EHCPs who have no education provision. We've found local authorities where hundreds of children with EHCP certificates are waiting for school places. Does that come as a surprise to you?
The numbers are big. So in a way, it's not a surprise, but they reaffirm my concern that this actually is, really widespread, and there's a lot of children in this situation. These are children who've already been through quite a lengthy process to get a plan in place, but are waiting for the right school to be able to give them the right support. Again, lots of children and parents that I've met that are spending a year, 18 months waiting for that right school, or indeed pinballing between applications to different schools. They won't get that 2 years back in their life. Even if it all comes good in the end, they won't get that 2 years back.
And that's only the children with an official EHCP. They could be the tip of the iceberg. When it comes to children with special educational needs who don't have an official plan but are also not in school, most councils seem unable to provide the figures. Several point out there is in fact no statutory requirement for them to keep a list of children with special educational needs.
The office. So it's like a magnifying glass.
Alex is 6.5. He's not been to school for 2 years. Diagnosed with autism when he was 2, his mum Rachel spent years trying to get an EHCP assessment, but the council rejected her applications. Just weeks after starting at mainstream school, without the right provision, he was excluded.
It just became too overwhelming for Alex, and ultimately, within 5 days of being at school full time, I had that phone call that I knew was coming, that we need to talk, there's issues, and that ultimately your son is facing exclusion. Alex, he used to write his name and draw and paint, and then following how emotionally traumatic he felt that experience was, he shut down completely. He wouldn't hold a pencil, he wouldn't write.
Do you feel that children like Alex have kind of been forgotten? Are they left behind?
I think they've been purposely squeezed out.
I'm going to have them at 6.
Alex now has an official EHCP, and figures from Birmingham City Council show he's one of 66 children with a plan who don't have a school place. But sources told Newsnight that the number of children with special educational needs who are not in school in the city is actually closer to 250, a figure the council says it doesn't recognise. And while many special schools are oversubscribed, the pressure on places in the mainstream sector is building. In simple terms, pupils who need specialist help typically cost more than they bring in. Mainstream schools like King's Heath have long subsidised special education and disability support from other parts of the budget, but are now saying things are so tight they may have to close the places of children like Aaron.
We don't want this to happen, but it's gonna happen, and if this doesn't stop, people will get split up from each other, friendships will be broken, and I really don't want that to happen, because I really like my school and what it's doing for me.
You've got 2 children here. How do you feel about the prospect of this school having to close its special needs place?
Angry, frustrated, annoyed. I wish I could strangle the person's neck who has decided to put us in this position. Because it's not just this school. I believe it's every other schools which are in the same situation. And this shouldn't happen. I mean, why is it happening? Why pick on disabled people?
Having a child with extra needs brings stresses and pressures every day, just to access services, to get equipment, to get wheelchairs. And if you've got a place at a school like this and you know that it's secure and you haven't got to worry about fighting anybody, it just takes that pressure off. It's almost like a little microcosm of the type of society that you want to be, because the kids just accept everything. There isn't too much, nothing's too much of a problem, and everybody's accepting and it's tolerant. And I think actually going out into the world now, it doesn't feel like that.
In April, the government announced additional funding of £350 million for special education. But compare that to the predicted funding gap of £1.6 billion, and it's little wonder the pressure on places is building. As competition intensifies, more children will be squeezed out of sight and perhaps out of mind.